Hi, in this little video I want to explain to you the rules of 12 hints. 12 hints is a game, one could say a board game, which can be played in real life, so it's not an online game. But in order to play it, you will have to go to the 12 hints website I created, and this provides you with the necessary cards to play this game. So let's explain this. First of all, you will have to be two players or more. So one could also say two teams or more, with at least one player for each team. These players have to meet at a table or online via a video conference tool. They have to see each other and they have to be able to talk to each other to play this game. If they sit at a table, they will also need one internet device of some kind. So, for example, a smartphone where they can go to that website and access those cards. You should also have a piece of paper and a pen to keep track of the scores of each player. So, let's pretend we have these three players: player blue, player yellow, and player red. What is this game now all about? One of the players grabs the smartphone or laptop and goes to the browser and goes to the 12 hints website. There he has to register if he's not registered yet and can log in. And when one is logged in to this website, you could see there are different options. So one could be creating a card or review a card from other users, but now I want to explain to you the display option. So one could click on play English or play German to play an English card or play a German card. And when you click on that, you will see this card. And as you can see, this card always consists of a card's category, in this case a who, which means the hints that are given here are leading to a person. In this case, it's the person Richard Feynman. So category, 12 hints, and when you look at the hints, you will see the first hint is rather unspecific, rather hard to get the solution from that hint, and the hints should be growing better and better, and the 12th hint or the 11th, 10th of the hints are quite good. Finally, you could also give the card a rating when you have finished the card. But now let's look what the blue player has to do before he reads out hint 1. So he will be reading out the hints 1, 2, 3, etc. to the other players. But before he does that, he has to give an evaluation. He has to make an estimate. He looks at the hints and he has to guess how hard is this card. How many hints will the other players need to guess the right solution? So he also have to be mindful of the other players' ability and knowledge. Do they know this person? And all this comes together, and he then has to think of a barrier. So these two aspects: how hard is the card? What can the other players do? He has to come up with a barrier. And this he has to say loud out to the other players before he gives the first hint. So he says, I set the barrier of 5. And what does this mean if the blue player says, I set the barrier of 5? So keep in mind, the blue player now is the only one who has read this card, Richard Feynman. The other players don't know this card. And he now set barrier 5. This means if the other players will get the solution before the 5th hint is given, hint 5 is given, he will get null points, 0 points. If the other players get the solution after the hint 5 is given or after hint 6, hint 7, etc., he will always get 5 points. So it doesn't matter if after hint 10 they get the solution, he will also get 5 points. So before null points, 0 points. So you see the barrier corresponds for 1 point with the with the place where this barrier is set, and then it also influences how many points the player will get. And you see the logic behind that, because when he sets the barrier higher, he has a greater risk that the other players will get the right solution before that barrier is reached, and he don't get any points then. But he also can get more points if this barrier is reached. For example, if he sets the barrier to 10, it means that if the solution is guessed before hint 10, so after hint 9, for example, he gets 0 points, but after hint 10, hint 11, hint 12, or if the solution is even not guessed at all right, even after hint 12, he will get those 10 points. So I said between 1 and 13, so I will make clear to you the cases on the edge. So 1 means, as you can see here, 5 means before 5, and 1 means that the blue player is betting that the other players don't get the solution right before hint 1, which is quite of a good bet because before hint 1 it's hard to get the solution right? So he could also be secure that he gets 1 point when he sets the barrier to 1, because when he sets the barrier to 1 and one the other players gets the right solution after hint 1, he will always get also that 1 point. So barrier 13 means that he bets that the card will not be guessed correctly at all. So even after hint 12, when then the card is not correctly guessed, this means that barrier 13 would be the right option, because then he gets 13 points if the card is not guessed correctly at all. But be mindful of this edge case, because when the player yellow, for example, gets the right solution after hint 12, the blue player will again get 0 points if he set the barrier to 13. So let's go on. This is one example. So the blue player has set the barrier to 5, and the red player has guessed the right solution after hint 4 in this case, and the blue player will get 0 points, as I said. The red player in this case will get 9 points. Why 9? Because after hint 1 he will get 12 points, after hint 2 11 points, after hint 3 10 points, after hint 4 9 points, etc, etc. So you could keep in mind the 13, and then you can always say 13 minus, in this case 4, is 9 points. So then you can be sure how many points will the player who guessed the right solution get. This is the points for the player who read out the card. Another example would be that player yellow guessed the card correctly after hint 10, and then the player yellow will get 3 points. Again, sum up and you will get 13. So 3 points for yellow, and the barrier 5 was reached. So the blue player now gets 5 points because the barrier 5 was reached. Okay, now you know all about the blue player and what do the other players do. They have to guess the right solution, as I said, and they have to be careful because they only have 1 guess per card. Yeah, no more. They only have 1 guess. One time per card they can say, I want to solve, and give a solution. But if that solution is not correct, they won't have another guess for that card, okay? They are out. If it is correctly, the card is closed, and the points are given to the player who read out via the schema I presented to you before, and the player who guessed it correctly gets the 9 points, for example, for player red in this first example, or 3 points for player yellow in this second example. And now here's another example where player red tried to guess the right solution after hint 5, but said something like, for example, Albert Einstein, and he was wrong. He is out now for this card, and only player yellow now says, I want to also hear hint 5. Okay, after hint 5 he says, I don't want to solve, I want to hear hint 6. hint 7, hint 8, hint 9, and then finally after hint 10 he says, I want to solve, he says Richard Feynman, and gets those 3 points. And player blue, of course, is happy because the barrier was reached and gets his 5 points. You see where that leads, and you want to keep track of the scores after each round, after each card, via a scores table. You could say in this case blue 5, yellow 3 points, red 0 points because he was too early and called the faults, called out. And you would also, maybe for documentation purposes, write down what barrier was set, 5 by the player blue, and then also when was the right guess made after hint 10 by player yellow. And of course, the next round you would say that maybe player yellow now reads out the next card, and player blue and red are in the guessing position. And then of course player red reads out the next card, and players blue and yellow are in the guessing position. And then you can set a limit, a finish line. For example, 60 points would be reasonable, where the player who first reaches 60 points wins this game. Okay, this was quite a lot, but now let me present to you one final option that makes this game more interesting, even more interesting. This is the skip option, okay? But before I present this to you, I want to be clear and say, if both players, red and yellow, want to solve after hint 6, so blue is happy, barrier 5 was reached, but those players want to solve after hint 6. They say, I want to solve, I want to solve. Then it is best practice that they write it on a little piece of paper and hand it hidden to the blue player, and then he will verify both solutions and the card is closed. And if both players get the solution right, they will both get those 13 minus 6, so 7 points after hint 6. Okay? This is one thing I want to be clear about. In an online setting, you could say they write it in the chat to the blue player, so the other players cannot see, but the blue player can then verify. So let's now present to you the skip option. The skip option is an additional option that only the players in the guessing position have. So the player in the position that reads out the card doesn't have the skip option. Skip option has to be set after the blue player, in this example, set the barrier, for example, 5. Then you have to say, if you're in the guessing position, I want to skip. So let's play out an example. For example, the blue player says the barrier is 13. Okay, 13 indicates that this card might be quite hard, because he's betting that you, the red or yellow player, are not getting the right solution before hint 12 or after hint 12. He bets that you will not get the solution right. And this might be a case where you want to take your skip option, which means you say, I want to skip this card, and this card will be skipped, okay? And this is bad for the blue player, because it might have been a very hard card, and he doesn't get those 13 points then. Just another card is now given, so the blue player has to click on the next card in this website, and another card, maybe an easier card, is given, okay? But you have to be mindful, because this option is only a one-time option in the whole game, okay? So each player has this option one time at the whole game. If both players, it is not necessary that both players take this option at one card. So if player red says, I want to skip the card, player yellow should be silent and not opt in his option, because it makes no sense, okay? But I want to explain this to you maybe with this slide. So he says 5, which would be quite low of a barrier, but if he says 11, you might think, this is a hard card. You might want to use your skip option, and then another card will be given. and also be mindful of the poker aspect this brings, because maybe the blue player knows that you will skip the card when he says 13, so he might want to say 8 to be more sure that you not skip this card, etc., etc. But if you let go of your skip option too early, the blue player might know, okay, yellow and red both don't have their skip options anymore, so now I can say 13, and that will be no risk of skipping. So you can see where this leads, and I would be glad if you understood this game by now, and I would also be glad if there are any more questions that you just put them into the comments and I will respond to them. Okay, this was 12 Hints. See you, and see you soon. Goodbye.